People think consistency is about motivation. They think it's about waking up inspired, feeling strong, wanting it badly enough. That's why most people fail, because motivation is a feeling, and feelings disappear the moment things get uncomfortable. This video is not about how to feel motivated. It's about why consistency has nothing to do with motivation at all. It's about identity. Look around, everyone starts strong. New routines, new promises, new versions of themselves. And then life shows up. They miss one day, then another. Then they start saying things like, "I'll restart on Monday." Or worse, "It just wasn't meant for me." That's not lack of discipline, that's lack of identity. Because people don't fail to act, they act in alignment with who they believe they are. A man who sees himself as someone who works out doesn't debate going to the gym. He goes. A man who sees himself as someone trying to work out negotiates every time. Trying is unstable, being is permanent. Most people live their lives as temporary versions of themselves. Temporary discipline, temporary focus, temporary effort. They borrow habits instead of becoming the kind of person those habits belong to. And borrowed habits always get returned. This is why motivation videos stop working after a few days. They try to push behavior without changing identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of who you believe you are. That's not philosophy. That's reality. In the military, we didn't rely on motivation. No one asked how we felt that morning. No one waited to feel inspired. You showed up because that's who you were. A soldier doesn't feel like training. He trains because not training would break his identity. Civilians don't understand this. They wait for the right mood. They wait for clarity. They wait for confidence. Identity doesn't wait. Identity moves first. Feelings catch up later. Right now, the reason you struggle with consistency is simple. You're still seeing your discipline as something you do, not something you are. And until that changes, every habit you try to build will remain fragile. In the next part, I'll show you the exact moment consistency becomes automatic. The point where effort disappears and identity takes control. Stay here. Most people think consistency breaks when life gets hard. That's not true. Consistency breaks when identity is unclear. When you don't know who you are, every obstacle becomes a debate. Every missed day becomes a question. Every failure becomes proof that maybe this isn't you. But when identity is clear, failure doesn't create doubt, it creates adjustment. A man who knows who he is doesn't ask, "Should I keep going?" He asks, "How do I continue from here?" This is where most people get it wrong. They think consistent people are stronger. They're not. They're simpler. They've removed choice. Choice is where inconsistency is born. Every time you decide again, you open the door to quitting. That's why people burn out. They rely on daily decisions instead of permanent definitions. I'm trying to be disciplined. That sentence already contains failure. Trying means optional. Identity means mandatory. In combat training, routines were not flexible. Not because flexibility was bad, but because hesitation was dangerous. When something must happen, you don't ask how you feel, you execute. The same rule applies here. Consistency becomes automatic the moment your actions stop being personal. You don't work out because you want to. You work out because that's what someone like you does. You don't wake up early because it feels good. You wake up early because your life requires it. This is where discipline stops being emotional and becomes structural. Structure outlasts emotion. Always has. If you're still depending on motivation, you're still living as a temporary version of yourself. And temporary people always return to old patterns. The goal is not to feel strong. The goal is to become someone who doesn't need to feel strong. When identity takes over, consistency is no longer impressive. It's invisible. No struggle, no speeches, no hype, just repetition. In the next part, we'll talk about the final shift, the moment you stop tracking progress and start trusting identity. That's where most people disappear. Stay with me. There's a moment most people never reach, not because it's impossible, but because it's quiet. No celebration, no visible breakthrough, no one claps. It's the moment you stop tracking progress. Not because progress isn't happening, but because you no longer need proof. Early on, people count everything: days, streaks, wins. They need evidence that it's working, that they're changing. But identity doesn't need confirmation. It doesn't ask for reassurance. It doesn't panic when results slow down. This is where consistency becomes dangerous in a good way. Because when you stop checking if it's paying off, you stop negotiating. Most people quit when results lag, not because the system failed, but because their identity was still conditional. They were disciplined as long as it felt rewarding, as long as progress was visible, as long as the mirror agreed. But identity-based consistency doesn't look for validation. It moves even when nothing seems to change. This is why real transformation is boring from the outside. No hype, no updates, no announcements. Just a man doing what he does because that's who he is. At this stage, motivation would actually be a liability. Emotion introduces volatility. Identity introduces stability. You don't need to feel driven. You don't need to feel ready. You don't even need to feel confident. You only need to be aligned. Aligned people don't argue with themselves. They don't need reminders. They don't need speeches. They've already decided who they are. And once that decision is made, consistency stops being something you chase and becomes something you protect. You protect it the way you protect your name, your word, your standards, not loudly, not aggressively, but without exception. Most people never experience this level because it requires letting go of the version of yourself that needs encouragement, the version that waits for proof, the version that wants guarantees. Identity doesn't offer guarantees, it offers direction. And once you step into it, there's no applause, no finish line, just a quiet understanding. This is how I live now. In the final part, I'll show you how to make this shift permanent, how to lock identity in place so consistency survives bad days, failure, and doubt. That's where this becomes irreversible. Stay here. The final shift is not dramatic. It doesn't feel powerful. It feels settled. This is where consistency stops being something you maintain and becomes something that maintains you. Most people try to protect habits. They set reminders. They track streaks. They look for accountability. That's necessary at the beginning, but it's fragile. Identity doesn't need protection. It enforces itself. When consistency is tied to identity, breaking it feels unnatural. Not painful, not scary, just wrong. Like using the wrong name, like wearing someone else's uniform. This is how you know the shift is complete. You don't fear missing a day. You don't obsess over perfection. You simply correct course without emotion. Missed a workout? You train the next day without guilt. Lost focus for a week? You return without drama. Because identity doesn't collapse under pressure, it absorbs it. Most people think irreversible change comes from intensity, from one big decision, from a dramatic moment. That's a lie. Irreversibility comes from repetition without negotiation, from doing the same thing long after it stopped feeling meaningful, from continuing even when the story in your head goes silent. This is why consistency terrifies people. Because it removes excuses, it removes personality, it removes comfort. You are no longer special, you are reliable. And reliability is rare. When you live this way, people will misunderstand you. They'll say you're rigid, obsessive, unbalanced. What they really mean is this: you make them uncomfortable. Because your consistency exposes their flexibility. Your standards highlight their negotiations. You're not better than them. You've just chosen permanence. At this level, discipline doesn't feel heroic. It feels normal. You don't wake up asking what kind of day it will be. You already know what kind of man you are, and that's the real difference. Motivation comes and goes. Identity stays. If you want consistency that survives boredom, failure, and doubt, stop asking how to feel motivated. Decide who you are, then act accordingly. No speeches, no countdowns, no hype, just alignment. This is the last way, not the easy one, not the exciting one, the one that remains. If this video spoke to you, stay here. We don't build habits, we build identity. See you in the next one.